Hello and welcome to today's episode, where we'll be delving into the fascinating life of Sir Francis Drake, one of the most renowned figures of the Elizabethan era. Drake was a man of many talents, an explorer, privateer, naval officer and politician. But perhaps he's best known for his audacious exploits against the Spanish, which earned him the nickname El Draque, or the Dragon. Now, I've always found Drake to be a rather complex character. On one hand, he's celebrated as a national hero in England, but on the other, he's vilified as a pirate by the Spanish. This dichotomy is something we'll explore throughout this video. Born around 1540 in Tavistock, Devon, Drake came from humble beginnings. His father was a farmer who later became a Protestant preacher. This religious background would play a significant role in shaping Drake's worldview and his actions against Catholic Spain. What's particularly interesting about Drake's early life is how quickly he rose from these modest origins to become one of the most powerful men in England. It's a testament to the social mobility that was possible in Tudor England, especially for those who proved their worth in service to the crown. Drake's seafaring career began in earnest when he was placed in the household of the Hawkins family, prominent sea captains in Plymouth. This connection would prove crucial for Drake's future. Under the tutelage of his cousin Sir John Hawkins, Drake embarked on his first voyages to the Americas. Now, it's important to note that these early expeditions were part of the transatlantic slave trade, a fact that's often glossed over in more romanticised accounts of Drake's life. Between 1562 and 1569, Drake participated in several of Hawkins' slaving voyages to West Africa and the Spanish Caribbean. These voyages were incredibly lucrative but also fraught with danger. The Spanish held a monopoly on trade in the Americas and viewed the English interlopers as pirates. The turning point came in 1568 during the ill-fated Third Slaving Voyage. The English fleet, including Drake's ship Judith, was trapped by the Spanish in the Mexican port of San Juan de Ulua. What followed was a disastrous battle that saw most of the English ships destroyed or captured. Drake managed to escape, but the experience left him with a burning hatred for the Spanish that would shape the rest of his career. The people of quality dislike him for having risen so high from such a lowly family. The rest say he is the main cause of wars. It's worth pausing here to reflect on Drake's involvement in the slave trade. While it's easy to judge historical figures by modern standards, we must remember that in Drake's time, the morality of slavery was rarely questioned. That being said, Drake's participation in these voyages is a dark chapter in his history that we shouldn't ignore. It's estimated that on these 4 voyages, approximately 1,200 Africans were enslaved, with perhaps 3 times as many killed in the process. This stark reality serves as a sobering reminder of the brutal foundations upon which much of the wealth and power of the Elizabethan age was built. Now let's turn to what is perhaps Drake's most famous achievement, his circumnavigation of the globe from 1577 to 1580. This voyage, often referred to as the famous voyage, was a turning point not just in Drake's career but in English naval history. It was the second circumnavigation of the Earth overall, and the first to be led by an Englishman. The expedition was privately funded by a syndicate that included Queen Elizabeth herself, though her involvement was kept secret to maintain plausible deniability in case of diplomatic fallout with Spain. Drake set sail from Plymouth on the 15th of November, 1577, with 5 ships and 164 men. The flagship, initially named Pelican, would later be renamed Golden Hind in honour of Sir Christopher Hatton, one of the voyage's main investors. The journey was fraught with challenges from the start. Bad weather forced them back to Plymouth for repairs, and they didn't properly begin their voyage until the 13th of December. As they made their way south along the African coast, Drake added a 6th ship, a Portuguese merchant vessel, and kidnapped its experienced captain to aid in navigation. The voyage took Drake and his crew through the Strait of Magellan and into the Pacific Ocean, where they began a series of raids on Spanish ports and ships along the coasts of Chile and Peru. One of the most significant captures was the Spanish galleon Nuestra Señora de la Concepción, nicknamed Cacafuego. The treasure aboard this ship was immense: 80 pounds of gold, a golden crucifix, jewels and 26 tons of silver, This single capture made the entire voyage wildly profitable. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Drake lost ships to storms and had to execute one of his own officers, Thomas Doughty, for alleged mutiny. This incident at Port San Julian in Patagonia remains one of the more controversial aspects of Drake's career. And after this holy repast, they dined also at the same table together, as cheerfully in sobriety as ever in their lives they had done aforetime, each cheering up the other and taking their leave, by drinking each to other as if some journey only had been in hand. After his successful raids along the Spanish Main, Drake sailed north, possibly as far as the coast of Oregon, before turning west to cross the Pacific. He made landfall on what is now the coast of Northern California, naming it Nova Albion, or New Albion. This episode is particularly interesting because it represents one of the earliest English claims in the New World. Drake's exact landing site has been the subject of much scholarly debate, but most agree that he reached at least 48 degrees north before turning back. He stayed in this area for several weeks, interacting with the local Coast Miwok people and conducting repairs on his ship. From California, Drake sailed west across the Pacific, through the Spice Islands, around the Cape of Good Hope, and finally back to England. He arrived in Plymouth on the 26th of September, 1580, with just one ship, the Golden Hind, and 59 remaining crew members. The voyage had lasted almost 3 years, but it was an unqualified success. The cargo of spices and Spanish treasure that Drake brought back was worth more than the Crown's income for that entire year. Queen Elizabeth's half share of the cargo alone exceeded the rest of the Crown's income for the year. The Queen was understandably delighted with Drake's success, but she also recognised the diplomatic sensitivity of the situation. She declared that all written accounts of Drake's voyage were to become state secrets, and Drake and his crew were sworn to secrecy on pain of death. This was an attempt to keep Drake's activities hidden from Spain, with whom England was not yet officially at war. Despite these precautions, news of Drake's exploits spread quickly, cementing his reputation as a hero in England and a pirate in Spain. As a token of her gratitude, Elizabeth awarded Drake a knighthood, performed aboard the Golden Hind at Deptford on the 4th of April 1581. She also presented him with a jewel featuring her portrait, an exceptional gift for a commoner. This jewel, known as the Drake Jewel, can still be seen today at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. El Draque. Drake's most famous hour came in 1588 with the defeat of the Spanish Armada. As tensions between England and Spain had been escalating for years, Philip II of Spain finally decided to launch a full-scale invasion of England. Drake played a crucial role in the English defence, serving as Vice-Admiral under Lord Howard of Effingham. The most famous anecdote about Drake during this time, though likely apocryphal, is that he was playing bowls on Plymouth Hoe when news of the Armada's approach reached him. He supposedly remarked that there was plenty of time to finish the game and still beat the Spanish. In reality, Drake's actions during the Armada campaign were a mix of brilliance and controversy. He captured the Spanish galleon Rosario, along with its commander Pedro de Valdez, which provided valuable intelligence about the Spanish fleet. However, he also disobeyed orders on occasion, pursuing prizes at the expense of coordinated action. Despite these issues, Drake's experience and daring were crucial in harrying the Spanish fleet up the English Channel and ultimately defeating it in the Battle of Gravelines. The defeat of the Armada was a turning point in European history, marking the decline of Spanish naval supremacy and the rise of England as a major sea power. Drake's later years were marked by further expeditions against the Spanish, but with diminishing success. His final voyage, in 1595, was a disastrous attempt to capture Panama. The expedition suffered from poor planning, disease, and strong Spanish resistance. Drake himself fell ill with dysentery and died on the 28th of January 1596 off the coast of Portobello, Panama. He was buried at sea in a lead coffin, a fitting end for a man who had spent most of his life on the waves. Drake's death marked the end of an era in English naval history. He had played a crucial role in establishing England as a major maritime power and had helped to lay the foundations for what would become the British Empire. There must be a beginning of any great matter, but the continuing unto the end until it be thoroughly finished yields the true glory. As we look back on Drake's life and career, it's clear that his legacy is a complex one. In England, he has long been celebrated as a national hero, a daring explorer who helped to establish England's naval supremacy. Numerous places bear his name, from Drake's Island in Plymouth Sound to the Drake Passage between South America and Antarctica. His exploits have been immortalised in literature, film and popular culture. However, in recent years there has been a growing recognition of the darker aspects of Drake's career, particularly his involvement in the slave trade and his brutal treatment of indigenous peoples in the Americas. This reassessment of Drake's legacy has led to some controversy. In 2020, amid the global Black Lives Matter protests, several landmarks named after Drake in California were renamed or removed. This included the renaming of Sir Francis Drake High School and the removal of a statue of Drake in Larkspur. These actions have sparked debate about how we should remember historical figures whose actions, while celebrated in their own time, are now seen as morally reprehensible. It's a complex issue without easy answers, but I believe it's important that we strive for a nuanced understanding of historical figures like Drake, acknowledging both their achievements and their failings. Sic Parvis Magna. In conclusion, Sir Francis Drake remains one of the most intriguing figures of the Elizabethan age. His life was one of extraordinary adventure and achievement, from humble beginnings in Devon to circumnavigating the globe and playing a key role in defeating the Spanish Armada. Yet he was also a man of his time, involved in the slave trade and in the often brutal expansion of English power overseas. As we continue to grapple with the legacies of colonialism and imperialism, figures like Drake serve as important reminders of the complexities of history. They challenge us to look beyond simple narratives of heroism or villainy, and to engage with the past in all its messy, contradictory reality. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Sir Francis Drake's life and legacy. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing and sharing it with others who might be interested. Your support really does make a difference to the channel, and do let me know in the comments if there are other historical figures or events you'd like me to cover in future episodes. Until next time, fair winds and following seas,